successful and soon to be successful traders. Chris Capri, secondsguysforex.com. Welcome to another video in the your trading mindset section. This one is on building a better brain meditation for trading, and it's an introductory video. Reason why I'm creating this is because I've written a couple articles on it. I had a great infographic on meditation and how successful Wall Street traders use it and just the various benefits. And I've got so many questions from it that I felt like, okay, it's something I wanted to really bring up more. And for those of you who are not in the ATM course, I have a 12 lesson meditation series. So those in the ATM course, they've seen the benefit, and they've noticed greater focus and clarity while trading. They've noticed that their relationships with their family and their kids are better. They notice that they're calmer, more relaxed, and they're less emotional while trading. So just the positive feedback people have seen and the changes they've seen from the ATM course and the articles I've written about it, I decided to kind of bring an introductory practice to those in the APA course, so that you can kind of start to experiment with this practice and see if it benefits you over just doing it for a few weeks, 10 minutes a day. And so this is a two-part series. This particular lesson will be in the intro, my background, the benefits of the practice, why you need to do it. I'll talk about the 6-point meditation posture. We'll talk about the breathing technique and the eyes focus, and we'll just kind of walk you through it very basic. And then what we'll do is I'll do a part 2 on this, which will be an audio recording of me kind of walking you through the practice and giving you something to work on for a few weeks. And then if you have a greater taste for it, then you can sign up for the meditation series in the ATM course. So let's get into this here. Talk about this and the benefits and my background and why you should use it and why I think it's going to change just the way you think, trade, and perform. So real brief, my background with meditation. I've been meditating for pretty much 16 years now. Every day I've probably done between 6,500 and 7,000 hours of meditation practice. In 2011, 2012, when I was living in Uruguay, so I didn't really tell people about it, but I moved to Uruguay for the specific reason of doing a 1-year meditation retreat. And that's because Uruguay is a very it's not really a populated country. There's only 3 million people. It's like the size of New York State. There's only 3 million people in it, and half of the population is in the capital, which is Montevideo. So if you're anywhere outside of Montevideo, you're probably in a non-populated area. And you notice nobody ever hears any problems about Uruguay and never hear anything, and that's a great place to be if you want to do a meditation retreat, is where nothing really crazy happens and you can just be. So I did a 1-year meditation retreat there, and that was a life-changing experience. And some things that I've shared a lot about in the ATM course, but that completely changed me in a way that will always be with me for the rest of my life. I am a certified meditation instructor within my Buddhist tradition on a couple particular practices. I've done about 150 plus weekend meditation retreats, and I've trained with the same Buddhist meditation teacher for 15 plus years. They are my teacher today. They are the only teacher that I work with on a mentor, teacher-student type relationship. I do see other teachers, but this is the only one I work with on a teacher-student relationship. So I have a very personal relationship with them, and they are my teacher, and there's just no question about that. And whatever they tell me to do and whatever practices they tell me to do, I do them until she says I'm done with them. So, I feel like hopefully that gives you some sort of confidence that I have an extensive background with this and can be a valuable teacher for you in this. So the benefits of meditation. So at this point, the science is out. It's very clear. There's no longer even a debate about it. Everything that pretty much the Buddhist traditions have been saying about meditation for the last 2,500 years, they're all true. They basically everything they've said, how it can change your brain, how it can change your mind, how it can improve all these different things, is completely true. And scientists have now had a good 4 or 5 decades to really study it on various different levels, and advanced meditation practitioners and absolute beginners. It's completely clear. So how can it benefit you? Well, I don't know about you, but there are very few ways that you can change your brain in a very significant way inside only 8 weeks. There are very few things you can do, especially at 10 minutes a day. Meditation is one of them. The study is very clear. I put it out on my infographic how in less than about 8 weeks, maybe even a little bit less, that they were seeing structural changes in people's brains who had no prior meditation experience inside 8 weeks. And that's phenomenal. And it improves it in a positive way. It can help increase IQ and emotional IQ. Both of them very important for trading. Improve memory, learning, emotional regulation. Hey, have you ever felt emotional while trading? That could help with that. Pattern recognition skills, very useful. Reduction of mental errors. How many times have you known what to do while trading but didn't do it? That's a mental error. It's a mental execution error. Some of the other more interesting, unique benefits, it can positively affect gene expression. So you can genes either upregulate and they become stronger, or they downregulate and become less potent and active, or less dominant. And I don't know if dominant's the best word, but so for example, changing gene expression, you can increase genes that help with immunity, and you can that would be upregulating, and you can downregulate genes that cause more health and illness, cause more fight or flight responses. It's You can actually change your genes completely just through meditation. Metabolism improves, insulin secretion improves, telomere maintenance, and reduce inflammation. And if you really start looking into the studies, particularly in the brain, but also in the body, of what are some of the root causes or denominators or variables in a lot of diseases today, cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, it's inflammation. And so reducing inflammation can have tremendous effects for your brain and your body. It can reduce your cognitive decline, which does happen throughout, as you age over time. And it can also reduce harmful effects of stress, which can totally and will affect your trading performance at time. It'll affect your health, your immunity. It'll affect everything in your life. Stress is something that will really, push back upon your brain and your body and your genes, and make it just harder and harder for you to be healthy and make good trading decisions. So these are some of the benefits. Are those things that are interesting to you? I would hope so. I would hope something in here sticks, that you say, yeah, that's interesting. I'm willing to invest 10 minutes a day in that. And that's what you're doing. You're just investing in something that can benefit you for a lifetime. And that is, that's what they call an asymmetrical return, where your risk is limited and your upside is virtually infinite. So this is very, very important. Now, I want to kind of make a statement, a pretty bold statement, about your brain, your mindset, trading, all these things, and why meditation practice will have an impact upon that. And this is something that students have discovered who started to do the meditation practice from the ATM course, which is that currently, right now, you don't see things, trading, charts, your brain, mindset, other people, as clearly as you think. What if I was to tell you that what you think is true, or what you think is clarity, or what you think is intelligence, or what you think is accurate in your perception and your analysis and your ideas about things, people, charts, brain, mindset, and all that? What if it's not as clear as you think? In fact, what if it's quite far off? This is something that anybody who's done the practice for 4, 6, 8 weeks realizes, because if you think you have control over your brain and your mind stream and your cognitive activity, then how come you didn't pull the trigger when you needed to? How come you revenge traded? How come you you know had this fear that paralyzed you from taking a perfect setup of your system? That's because of your brain and your mindset, and you not being able to have control of your brain. And so, an interesting fact, which is that the brain produces on average 60,000 plus thoughts per day, comes out to about 0.7, 0.8 per second. So every second, pretty much 55, 60, 55, 57 thoughts a minute. That's a lot. And of the 60,000 thoughts, you're only conscious of about 5,000 or 5% of it, which comes out to 3,000 thoughts. So 57,000 other thoughts that are happening throughout your day you're not conscious of. And yet a lot of those are responsible for the decisions you make, not just in everyday functioning, but also while trading, critically while trading. And so, there's a lot of things happening in your brain that you just aren't aware of. Some of it you have kind of a subtle awareness of, and that would kind of be on a more subconscious level, but your unconscious activity, you're not aware of at all. And that's why they call it unconscious. And a lot of what's happening with your cognitive activity is actually under the surface and under the radar. And because of that, maybe you're making decisions for reasons you don't know why or don't understand. And yet they seem like the intelligent thing. If they didn't seem like the intelligent thing or the best thing to do in that moment or the most beneficial thing, then you wouldn't be doing them. Yet you do them anyways. And yet you find out later, okay, that was actually a bad idea. That was not the right thing to be doing. And so what happens is that as you start to take on this practice and sit with your brain and sit with your mind, you realize, wow, the first time you try and sit down for meditation, the practice that I give you, you're going to find out it's actually quite difficult. In fact, you're going to find out that you probably won't be able to do it successfully. And what if you really are earnest with it, earnest with your practice and yet honest with yourself, you'll realize, okay, you know what? I don't have as much control of my mind as I thought I did. And as you continue to practice, you're like, okay, actually, I don't even have a fraction of the control of my mind that I think I did. And we'll test this. We'll test this in this lesson. And so, once you start to do that, it becomes clear that something else is going on, and it's much more in your brain and your mind, and that's much more dominant than you think. And so, how can you make good trades and execute mentally correctly in the things that you need to if you don't have as much control of your mind? If you don't see things as clearly as you think you do? If all those brilliant ideas that you think you have about other people, the mindset, the brain, those things, if they're not as accurate as you thought they are, then what? Well, then you're left with a choice. I can either do the work to kind of discover a little more clarity and become more clear about these things, or I can keep going as is and then see how that works out. My guess is it hasn't worked out for you. If you didn't, you wouldn't be taking this training. If you had everything you needed to make money trading right now, if you had the mindset to do it, you would be doing it. But you're not. And there's a reason for that. And that has to do with your brain and mindset. And that's why I want you to really kind of take on this practice, even just for a few weeks. It's not long. 10 minutes a day. You don't have to do it 6, 7 days a week. You can do it 4 or 5. That's 40, 50 minutes. You have that time. There's 168 hours a week, and I'm asking for less than 1 hour. That's it. 10 minutes a day. And so, when you start to do this for 4 or 6, 8 weeks, you start to realize, okay, what I thought was clear and accurate isn't. And during that period, you'll start to become more clear and become more confident and become more relaxed and calm and less emotional. And you'll start to feel things differently and experience things differently and see things differently. And that will penetrate and infiltrate not just your trading, but everything in your life. And I don't know about you, but that's one of the best trades I could consider taking. So, with that being said, let's get into the basics of the meditation practice. And the first thing we're talking about is the 6-point meditation posture. So, these are 6 points that you just have to remember to have good meditation posture while you're doing this practice. So, the first is, before we get into this, actually, you're going to need either a chair with a relatively straight back, and it can't be something that leans back naturally. It's something that should be more straight backed, that you have an upright posture on. You can use that or what is called a zafu, Z-A-F-U. And if you Google it, you'll see what a zafu is, basically. It's a round cushion that's used for meditation practice. And so point number 1 is that we always have a straight back. And we do this so that, and we have and that means a straight spine. And we do this so that the energy and the breath moves very cleanly through up and down our spine, because we're going to need that. So does the breath. And it kind of gives us both a regal posture, like very king-like or queen-like, but it also allows us to be attentive yet relaxed. The second is that, and you can do this as I'm kind of walking you through them. So the second, as you start to sit up, go and sit with your back straight. You notice it kind of has an invigorating energy to it. The next one is you're going to make your chin parallel to the ground. And the reason why the chin is parallel to the ground is because if you do that, then what it does is it kind of elongates the upper spine and also straightens kind of the back of the head, so that by doing that, you really kind of lengthen up the spine and you make sure that the spine remains relatively straight and upright from bottom to top. The third point is that our shoulders are going to be back and relaxed. So you can kind of lift your shoulders up towards your ears, roll them backwards, and then relax them to the ground. And you notice that kind of takes a weight off your shoulders, and it kind of has a nice feeling to it. And again, it kind of creates this posture that's very energetic and yet relaxing at the same time. The fourth point is your seating part of your posture. So if you're in a chair, then what you're going to do is have your knees shoulder width apart, and no more, no less. So just look at them and see, are they shoulder width apart? And then for your feet, you're going to place them soles down so that the feet are directly 90 degrees below the knees. And this kind of creates this nice right angle with your leg and your knees. Toes are pointing straight forward, or they can be pointed slightly inward a little bit. If you're using the Zafu, for those of you that have a little more flexibility, you're going to minimally have your legs crossed, and you can have one leg in front of the other. I wouldn't recommend one ankle on top of each other, because that will supinate one ankle and pronate the other, and that means that you lengthen the tissues on your one leg on one side of the leg and you shorten them on the other, and you do the reverse on the other leg, and that creates a problem when you start lengthening tendons or shortening them improperly. So just have them cross-legged to where the knees are bent out to the sides, and you have, you can have your right leg in front of you and your left leg behind you, and they're just kind of in a cross-legged position. If you are in a cross-legged position, your knees always have to be, your knees should be lower than your hips. Okay, I just changed that. So knees should be lower than your hips. And why should your knees be lower than your hips? The reason why we do that is that the blood will flow from your heart downward. And if they go down into your hips, but your knees are above your hips, then they have to go up your legs to get to your knees, and that actually creates a lot of strain and stress, not only in the heart, but also in blood circulation, then it affects the knees long term. So we want the knees to be below the hips, so this way that the blood flows easily through gravity, and it doesn't have to force anything to get into the knees. The last part of the 6-point posture is your palms are going to be down resting on your knees, and if you want to, you can connect the tips of the thumb and the index fingers together with palms facing down. This is what they call a mudra, or mudra translates into seal, and it's kind of like in yoga and meditation, it's kind of like a seal of energy in the channels in the body. So go ahead and sit in this posture, and as you do, notice, how do you feel? It should feel a combination of energetic and attentive and yet relaxed at the same time. It should also feel like the energy is moving relatively freely, and if it doesn't, if you experience pain, then that's just your body kind of signifying, hey, you have some tension here, you have some muscles you need to work on here, some flexibility you need to work on in these areas. That's your body communicating to you, saying, hey, these are things you can work on. The good thing is that as you continue with the practice, your nervous system and your muscles and flexibility will increase, and your ability to relax will increase, and so will your nervous system as well. So while maintaining this particular posture, I'm going to get into the breathing technique and the eye focus. So for the breath, we're going to have our mouth closed, and you're going to be breathing in and out only through the nose. And we do this because breathing through the mouth kind of activates the nervous system in a way that gets it more excited, and we don't want to excite the nervous system, we want to relax the nervous system. And so instead of breathing through our mouth, we're going to breathe through our nose, in and out the nose. We want our breathing to be slow and deep, and it should be done in a way where we're not forcing it. So if our breath is kind of excited now, then we'll just gradually slow it down. We'll just gradually relax until it slows down. And eventually, as you start to do that, a gap should emerge between the inhale and the exhale. And did you notice that there was a gap there in between your inhale and last exhale? As you do, if you didn't, then as you continue to slow this down, you'll start to notice this. So that's the breathing part of the technique. And then once we have this kind of settled into our breath and a regular rhythmic breath, the last part of this is the eyes. So the eyes, we're going to have what is called a gentle gaze, and it's not going to be outwardly focused. What do I mean by that? So the eye see external objects. So how could it not be outwardly focused? Well, you can kind of just gaze out the window, and you don't necessarily have to be looking at things. You can kind of just be passively allowing that um, visual, that visual data and those photons of light to just kind of enter your eyes. So, not outwardly focused means that we're not using our eyes to kind of concentrate on a particular object, like we're peering into it. Um, it's more, and that would be a more outward energy from the brain and the eyes. We're having more of an inward energy, so that we're just kind of allowing what we see to just come in without describing it, without thinking about it, without trying to look at the details. We're just kind of holding our eyes into a gaze. And it's not that we're spacing out. We're not spacing out. It's not like you just become spaced out or anything like that. No, you're still attentive. You're totally present with that. So we're aware of our surroundings, but we're not actively seeing in the sense that we're not trying to grasp onto objects through our vision. So the gaze is going to be about forward. It's going to be forward and slightly down, and the height of the gaze will be about at the height of your heart. If you were to have a horizontal line from your shooting out from your heart, it'll be at about that height. And by looking down while having our chin parallel, that actually creates a calming and relaxing energy to our brain and our nervous system. If we look up, it's more stimulating. You can go ahead and try now. Look up while holding the posture, and then look down and see if you notice the shift in your energy. It should feel different. Upward is engaging, downward is relaxing. So that's the basic technique of the meditation practice. And so we're going to, in the next lesson, I'm going to walk you through a meditation practice that you can do now that you have the 6-point posture, now that you understand the benefits of it, how you should be sitting, your breath, your eyes. In lesson number 2, I'm going to teach you a very basic practice, and this should be the one that should very clearly communicate to you that maybe you don't see things as clearly as you think you do, and maybe you don't have as much control of your brain as you think you do. And I'm willing to bet that you're going to experience that as well. So hopefully now you have just kind of a very good basic primer on the meditation for trading, which is the basic practice I'm going to teach you next. And this is something that ideally you can do it 4 or 5 days a week. If you can't do it 5, 6, 7 days a week, then just try 4 or 5. 5-10 minutes a day. 10 minutes is great. If not, 5 minutes is fine. And this is something you're going to work with. And so I'll teach the very basic fundamental practice that you can do to make changes in your brain, and that you can start to see things a little bit differently about your brain, about your thoughts, about your mental activity, about your mindset, about trading. And I think once you do this in earnest, you're going to really kind of step back and take a different look at your level of clarity that you thought you had, and how you see things, and that maybe there's something more going on than you thought. So I hope this serves as a good foundation and basic primer for the practice, and it kind of gives you an introduction to it and why you should be doing it. And so with that being said, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video and your comments and questions on this, and I will see you inside the course.